All right, we're back. Hello, hello. How's it going? All right, you've joined us now live for an experiment in how Pretzel Rocks works. I've been a little displeased with it lately because my stations just have been recently, and by recently I mean like 2 months ago. Instead of having access to, hours of music on here, this jazz station has one song that lasts 7 minutes. Lo-fi, 4 songs, also 7 minutes. Chill, which used to be our bread and butter, 29 songs for 71 minutes. We've been having to make do with Calming Cinematics, which at least has 4 hours of music. So we're doing a bit of an experiment. We're almost done here with the only song on the jazz radio station. And I'm kind of curious about what happens now. I'm hoping this is just an incorrect UI. I'm hoping the UI is just lying to me. Oh god, I installed the NVIDIA app and now it's like, use the NVIDIA overlay. We'll see how annoying that is. How's everyone doing? It's fine day. Alright, what happens? What happens now? Oh, you literally go back and start replaying the same song again. Okay. Alright, well that's unacceptable. I was curious about this because most of the playlists I play are too long for me to notice what happens. Let's play world music for 42 minutes. But yeah, if this doesn't improve by like the end of the year, I think I'm maybe dropping Pretzel. I mean, technically my subscription runs until like March, but displeased. What do you guys think? Can I just not play music? Because if I was listening to a devlog that wasn't playing music, I would just play my own music in the background. I would just open a second tab on YouTube and just start playing music. I know that's what Aramis does, and Aramis is reasonably successful. So what do y'all think? Can I get away with no music on the stream? Or do I need to like find some kind of alternative? Let me know. But let's get back to what we were doing yesterday, which was finishing our little test suite, which is trying to work out the basic functionality of our system. I believe we are running into some issues with remove component, because create entity, set component, add component, these all work. I think we had an issue with remove component. I of course have lost all of the context that I had yesterday about how this works. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to do this, am I? The Godot editor isn't running. Oh, are you just gonna open Godot for me? Oh, you will. Fancy. I don't even have to have the project running. Cyberus, hello. Welcome to the chat. How's it going today? All right. Key not found. Index 4 is not present in the dictionary. We can presume that the dictionary that they're talking about... Oh, wait. The problem was not in... Oh, the problem is in remove, but we are observing it here. We're observing it in the print component values function. The problem is with index 4. So this is curious. It's going pretty well. You just had a burrito? Nice. I had a burrito last night for dinner. It was good. It's usually too much food. It's like, having a burrito is like deciding to replace all of the empty volume in your stomach with just a solid mass of beans and cheese and maybe meat and rice. It's good, but wow. I don't know how you're gonna be, I don't know how you're gonna be productive. I would take a nap. Physics, yo! Welcome back. I really enjoyed having you in the chat yesterday. You were very knowledgeable about all this stuff. I wanted to ask you what kind of stuff you're working on, but I think you had to go before I was able to ask you that question. We figured out our data storage issue yesterday. Heck yeah, that's what they're for. You might do that, yeah. Yeah, I think that's an almost inevitable side effect. All right, so this dictionary, the chunks, the entity indices, is not being filled out correctly during the remove component step. What's weird is that it worked here. That's really perplexing, actually, that it worked for this initial entity. Physics, your mom used to work at a Mexican restaurant when you were a little kid. You used to go to work with her sometimes. You'd go into the storage room and roll around pretending you were a burrito. It's important to have dreams when you're a kid. I was going to be Batman, you know. How's everyone doing? And now that we've got some people in here, how do people feel like, what would people feel like if the stream stopped having background music in the the near future? Would you just start playing your own music in the background, or you'd be like, the vibe is bad and I'm leaving? Because that's what I'm concerned about. So I'm having some issues with my music vendor here. All right, so let's go through remove component, game world, remove component. It is very similar to add component, and it's very interesting that it's working the first time, but not the second time. So let's spot the differences here. Oh, well, here's a problem. That's wrong. Okay, so maybe it's an issue with this. We were caching the wrong. Well, that shouldn't actually cause a problem. That was wrong, but I don't think that should be causing the problem that we're experiencing. But let's see if it is. You wouldn't mind? You wouldn't mind either? You think it's chill either way? Ryan, you usually listen to your own stuff. All right, we're gonna do it. We're doing it. I'm gonna pick a cutoff, an arbitrary cutoff. It's gonna hurt me a little bit. It's gonna wound me because it means I'm gonna be sitting in an empty room. But it also means I can take these headphones off. So. And I got some new glasses, and they are not comfortable with the headphones for like hours at a time. Which is unfortunate because I really like these glasses. And these headphones. Okay, I might get sick of this NVIDIA overlay pretty soon. Okay, but that's good to know. Thank you. Thank you for being my small sample size. And Ryan K. Hawkins, welcome to the chat. How's it going today? Cyberus, are you writing your own ECS? Because does Godot not have one natively? It does not, and I am. Godot is structured. Godot has this node-based structure that's very different. And it's good. We're still using that for everything in the scene tree. But like our project structure is going to be like at the basic level. If you kind of look over here, it's going to be like a node that's the game, a node 2D that's like the board, which is like everything that you can see on the game board. We'll have like a UI, we'll have a camera. But we're going to have a bunch of stuff that's getting simulated, and the stuff that's getting simulated but that doesn't need to be on screen or UI pickable or whatever, that stuff is going to exist off in like C# data land. It's going to exist somewhere else in our ECS, so it's not going to be backed by nodes at all. So we're coming up with an entity component system to be able to represent and operate on objects that don't otherwise exist in the game. Like, that we want to simulate them, but we don't need them to be on screen. We don't need them to be considered for physics or rendering or whatever. Two nerdy nerds. You must pick one or the other. Have them battle to the death. Seashells by the seashore. Yeah. C# by the seashore. Yeah. I guess I'll have my glasses fight my headphones and see who wins. It's a little unfortunate. Maybe I'll get some speakers for my desk. Get some little speakers during this the high holy period of shopping. How's it going, nerd? I'm very excited by your new game, your Dwarf Brick Breaker game. That looks fun. Ear reveal at 160 subs. Yeah. Oh, hey, Shrippy. How's it going? Where's Ryan? You multi-streaming? Yeah, we're multi-streaming on Twitch and YouTube. So we got... And I'm forbidden by the TOS from showing both chats, so I'm kind of just the in-between. I'm the go-between here. C-shit is an accurate nickname for C#. Yeah, it's not great. Cyberus, that's interesting. You use Bevy, and it does it basically the reverse of that, having ECS at the core and a node parent tree on that. That's fascinating. That's truly fascinating. I could be using an out-of-the-box like C# library already, but I feel like our needs are kind of unique, and I kind of want to understand what's happening, so we're writing our own. And we're doing well, I think. Okay, so we were going to test to see if what we changed that seems unrelated fixes anything. It shouldn't. Oh, it did. Huh, so it was an issue with caching the graph nodes. Doing good. Hope everything doing well in this corner. Yeah, it's pretty good. We got some pretty great progress. We made a little test system that basically just to see how I think we've got most of the basic ECS functions working. Ryan, a nerd is in your head. You will never know, Shrippy. You will never know. This might be just how I keep myself busy when the chat's quiet. I just invent chatters. It's Cyberus. Wow, crazy. You're in both chats at once. That's very close to violating terms of service. Because you can see both chats at once. I'm just not allowed to show it. But yeah, our ECS seems to be working. We can create entities. We can set their components. We can add components to them, which moves them to a new archetype. We can remove components from them that moves them to a new archetype. And then we have a cool little write line that gives us a printout of whatever they consist of. So we've got like an entity with a direction only, an entity with a position only, an entity with a position and a direction. So we're moving things around. Next up, I think we need to test recycling entities. So we need to delete a bunch of entities and then add entities back. Oh, thank you for the follow. Thank you for the follow, Cyberus. Yeah, you should be thinking of the space-time stream continuum. Oh god, he's posting in both chats. Or they're posting in both chats. Alright, so this all works. All our entities seem to be great. We're storing them and retrieving them accurately. Oh, there's an earthquake happening right now. Stand by. It seems minor. But you know, it can always change. This is California living for you. Just a minor earthquake. It seems to have stopped. That was probably a 3 or a 4 somewhere. A few miles away. Yeah. You get really used to it. It's kind of weird. You get kind of unfortunately very used to it. Oh, you can't feel it out there? Okay, well, you're like a couple 100 miles away from me, so. Maybe you're less than that. I'm sure it feels like it's that much if you try to drive it. You didn't do it? Pulsified? I don't believe you. You showed up exactly when it started. All right, so let's pick a random set of entities to recycle. Let's do this in such a way where we try to empty an archetype. Maximum warp. Thank you. Thank you, nerd. 250-ish? Okay. I was ballpark right. All right. You'd run just in case. You don't get any earthquakes up in the Isles. We get them all the time here, and they're kind of like this, where you just kind of notice your desk shake for a minute, and you like try to see if it's like a neighbor or like a heavy truck like going like across the street, and if it's not, you're like, oh, it's an earthquake. You don't understand why people still live in Cali. Prices are so high. Taxes are through the roof. The homeless problem is rampant. They have forest fires and earthquakes. Yeah, it's a pretty beautiful place with reasonably nice people, but you know, yeah, that equation is changing all the time. And you know, someday I could see myself going farther up the Pacific Northwest to somewhere it still rains. That was part of the big appeal for me in San Francisco, was that it like rained all the time and it was like nice and foggy and right on the ocean. It's not so true anymore. Oh, it was a 6.0 west of Reading at the ocean. Okay, I'm at the ocean. I'm like right along the edge of that. I mean, we all are out here, but that's cool. Okay. Just a bit of a shifting in the tectonic plates. Move up to Gravity Falls, Oregon. I don't know, I've heard some crazy stuff about Gravity Falls. We'll see. I'm still kind of a techie dweeb, and they don't really like Californians in Oregon, as far as I can tell, so I'll probably end up in, like, Seattle or something someday. If I ever get enough money to, you know, choose somewhere to live like that, because the cost of living is not less up there than here. All right, so we're gonna do a remove. Let's focus. Let's just say for I is, let's do the odd ones. We'll say for we'll loop through everything. I realize I could omit the conditional in this loop and then just do it in the loop. Like instead of asking if I is an even number, I could have just said I plus 3 plus equals 3 or whatever, 4 or whatever. Like I could have just done it this way, but I don't really care. This is a temporary test system. So we're gonna just say if this is an odd number, and the odd numbered ones are all the ones that consist of a position and a direction. So we're just gonna delete those. Let's say game.world. Just the earth getting comfy, no biggie. Yeah, exactly. Just shifting, like kind of the way I'm shifting at my desk. So many people immigrated out of California to Texas and Florida. It is true. It is true. That is happening. So we're going to do destroy entity for entity IDs I. So let's test this by itself just to see if it works. Oh, I'm getting a tsunami warning. I'm not.
The powerful waves and strong currents may impact coasts near you. You are in danger. Get away from coastal waters. Move to high ground or inland now. Keep away from the coast until local officials say it is safe to return.
I'm fine. I'm hundreds of feet above the water's edge. I'm like 15 minutes from the ocean, but I'm like on top of a hill. But that's fun. Those ocean earthquakes will do it. I'm actually gonna... Yeah, she would have gotten it too. I'm gonna text my girlfriend. Just be like, I kind of know where she is right now, and I'm like, that's kind of close to the ocean. Maybe just walk inland. Yeah, I'm good. Call her. No, the problem is she's on the phone. She would have gotten that notification though. She's actually probably walking back now. She's fine. But I messaged her. These loops are the same. The 2 for loops are identical. The loops are identical physics. We're going through all the entities and making them. We're going through all the even entities and adding a component. Then we're going all of every fourth entity and removing a component. And then we're going through every odd entity and destroying an entity. And then we're going to go through, I don't know, every odd entity and recreate it to test the recycling. We're just testing the basic functionality, just like flushing the system. Tell her to grab the surfboard. Yes, surf's up. Pacific Coast, what's going on? Vancouver, Canada guy here. Hey, Fox. There was a bit of an earthquake just now, kind of in the ocean, a ways away from me, and we felt it. You know, we got a tsunami warning, so we're ready. We're ready to join with the ocean here. If I get hit by the tsunami, I don't have to go back to work in a couple hours. So, you know, positives and negatives. Can you move the if conditionals into the loop? Into one loop? Wouldn't it be more efficient? Well, physics, I could do things where I could move the conditionals into each loop. So I could say, you know, for I equals 0, for I is less than 256, for I plus equals 2 or whatever. So we could just only iterate through. But we couldn't put this all into a single loop because, well, we could, but I'm trying to test out some systems where we like fill archetypes. So we like create new chunks and then we delete them and we like empty them. So I'm trying to like thrash the system a little bit here. This is also temporary. This is temporary. They're calling the quake 7.3 now. Wow, that's not small. All right, girlfriend is safe. Crisis averted. I don't know of any living memory where San Francisco's actually been hit by a tsunami. It doesn't need to be efficient. Yeah, that we're just testing some stuff. This whole system is gonna get deleted once we're satisfied that this works. That has admittedly been a hard thing, like, as I was learning, was to, like, know what's throwaway and know what's, like, important. All right, so something busted. Something broke. So archetype, remove entity. We're doing this, so this is for the last entity in the system. So I think the filling in process is probably not totally working. Because when we remove an entity from a component, from a chunk, from anywhere in the chunk, we fill in with the entity at the very top. So we like fill in the gap, fill in the gap, fill in the gap, fill in the gap as we're removing entities from the middle of the chunks. And we might be running into an issue. It's weird that we're only running into it with the very last entity, so maybe we're having some kind of issue here. Interchunk 0, intrachunk 255. So we're not crossing any chunk barriers for one thing, which means our test isn't large enough. Which is too bad. We should blow this test up. Once we're satisfied with it in terms of like what's happening, we're gonna blow it up in terms of scale. Last time one hit SF, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was there, if you remember correctly. You remember better than me. Was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson getting a tour of the Rock Alcatraz? I'm laughing physics, but I'm not repeating. But you got your... That's a good one. Okay, so the substitute ID is 00. So 00 is really the farthest up here. 255. A little suspicious. Oh, or no, sub ID. Okay, so this is the issue here. Sub ID 00 is component type. Okay, so we're not initializing this value yet. This is where the error is. Item count -0. Source index. Chunk. Item count is 0. Oh, so this chunk is empty, allegedly. This chunk is empty. But we're trying to get it. Trying to get something out of this chunk that's empty. Huh. Remove component at. Oh, so we're removing the last component from this chunk. But the problem is then we're trying to get... So we need to do this a little differently. We're trying to get the topmost entity, but the chunk is empty, so there's no entity there. So we need to do a quick check for that. We just need to protect against that. Probably here. Okay. Fair enough. That's a good one, though. The San Andreas movie, was that in SF? There was a red bridge. I mean, San Andreas has not... Oh, maybe that was San Andreas, the movie. Probably, I think... Oh yeah, look at this, a 2015 movie. That was definitely in San Francisco. Oh, I can see my house from here. Huh. I never watched that. 48% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, so yeah, it's... Yeah, that was a big one. What was that earthquake? Oh, so this isn't historical. This is like totally fictitious. This is like what would happen if there was a big one. What if the San Andreas Fault opened up and just ate California? Cool. Total fiction, and it has the rock. It has the rock in the rock? How can you name a movie after a city? That's a good question. I guess the city wouldn't sue, because it's like good advertising. I live in San Francisco? Yes, I do. How is it? It's fine. I've been here a long time. So it's like, you know, I still like it, but that's because, like, you know, I have lots of memories of it. And I don't feel the need to, like, go all over the city. So I kind of just keep to, you know, parts of it that I need to go to. I don't know. It's like anywhere you live for a long time. You kind of, you have this whole experience of the city and you have all these memories and stuff, but you don't necessarily engage with all of it all the time anymore. You're like kind of past that phase of like exploring the city and like really going out there. It's fine. I would say representations of the city in the media are overblown, is all I would say about that. You'd never go. It's like New York, you would expect not coming back. It's not that bad. It's like if you look at any of the actual statistics, like violent crime is like almost non-existent and has been going down for years, if not decades. So it's like there's a lot of propaganda about big cities. It's a very different experience. I mean, don't bring like a van full of like expensive camera equipment and then park it somewhere and leave. The Rock is in The Rock, and you think Kevin Hart is in Braveheart? Kevin Hart should have been in Braveheart. It's maybe a little before his time, but if they remake it, go for it. All right, so what are we doing? So this is our problem. We're grabbing the substitute ID from a chunk that's empty because we're emptying the last entity out of the chunk. So we need to do a quick check here to see if the chunk is empty. So we are already doing this chunk, or we're already doing this check here, so we need to move this up here. But we need to structure this differently. So we need to say... So we'll say we'll do this. What just happened? I feel like they should make it easier to do what I'm doing here. Okay, there we go. Like inserting braces. We'll do this and we'll return. Why is it saying we'll never get to this code? Oh. There we go. Let's just move this up here. You will say when you lived in a city, you never knew anyone that was a victim of anything. You moved to a rural town and then knew someone that got murdered. Do with that what you will. I mean, if you watch any criminal, if you watch like Miss Marple or like, you know, Murder, She Wrote or whatever. If you watch any kind of murder mystery thing, the per capita number of murders that occurs in a small town is out of control. Semicolon after your if. Yeah, thanks, physics. I appreciate the help. I feel like the latency on YouTube makes it hard to help that quickly, but I appreciate the effort. Would be kind of cool to go to New York, though. Maybe there's New York Italians. There's definitely New York Italians, I'll tell you that. Heard it's different than Italian spoken in Italy. Oh, yeah, almost certainly. You live in a rural town, it's dangerous. Yeah. Yeah, big cities have their problems. There's a lot of property crime, but there's very little violent crime. So it's like, you know, you drive your car out here and leave your bag in it. Don't do that. Or, you know, you drive your car out here. It's going to have its catalytic converter ripped out from the bottom of it. But anyway, you should be using public transit. Cars are evil, especially in a big city. All right, so that should fix the problem. So now when we're removing the components and we're emptying the chunks, we'll just remove the chunk if it's empty now, and we won't bother with a substitution. Otherwise, we'll grab the sub ID and we'll substitute it here. All right, let's see if that fixed that. Probably did. Maybe didn't. No? Something else? Oh, interesting, interesting. Where did this happen? Test system ready. Oh, at the debug, at the debug. Oh, well, we're trying to access entities that don't exist. So that's obviously a problem, but that's because we're not done with our test yet. All right, now that we destroyed the entities, let's just recreate them all. See how that works. Hey gang, hey Ferlansky, how's it going? When there's 10 people in the town, one crime victim is like 10% of the population. That's an important thing to note as well. You live rural as well, very little crime here. Like I said, it depends on where you live. Yeah, and like you said, if it happens to one person, that one person you probably interact with, or you know someone who knows someone. It's like, you know, some number of n number of degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. You like definitely know that one person that had something happen to them, or you know someone who knew them. Whereas out here, something could happen to, you know, someone across the street from me, and I've never met them and will never hear what occurred to them. So yeah, that matters. That definitely is a factor. All right, so same deal. We're gonna do the same thing again for safety because we're not updating our list of entities here. We're just gonna game.world.create entity. We need to send a composition. What composition do we want? Should we just do the same thing again? I feel like we should do something different, but I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to do this here. All right, be right back. 1 second. All right, partner has returned safely. Was not swept away by the sea. Was sitting on a log by the ocean. All right, Frlansky says, you found out you're going to be made CTO next year? That is incredible. That is amazing. Congratulations. That's awesome. Sometime next year. Are you basically already doing the job, or is this like out of nowhere? All right, so we're gonna add back all of these entities. It's not the best test, but should be fine. All right, so if we look back here, all of the entities with both positions and directions. Oh, no. All of the entities with just positions now have a version number of 1 because we've recycled their entity ID. I'm a little perplexed about the order in which we've selected this. Oh, because we go in reverse order, because we pick. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe that makes sense based on substitution. The order in which we do the substitution. Let's look at that for a second. It's probably fine, but I just want to understand how we recycle, the order in which we recycle entities. Yeah, you already got the workload for it. You spoke to the CEO and was like, this workload is like CTO level. And he basically said that's the point because he'll make you CTO. Hell yeah. That's not always how that conversation goes. Sometimes that conversation is like tough. That's great. I'm very happy for you. I don't know how you're going to have any time to do anything else, but so like rip your free time, I guess, but that's awesome. Although you're in Europe, maybe you have work-life balance out there. But an American C-suite executive is basically required to live and breathe their work. And, you know, not take time off or anything. Always be available, all those horrible things that stuff's known for. All right, so when we recycle an entity, we basically say, give us the first dead entity and then increment its version count by 1. Then plug it into, plug it back in, assign it back, okay. And then map it. Okay, so it's not happening here. It's happening when we destroy an entity. It's our... so when we destroy an entity... So the sub ID is just whatever the first dead entity is. Oh no, it's the last living entity. I see. So we put the last living entity in place of the entity we just destroyed. So we're moving entities around when we destroy. That's because we need to maintain a tight collection. So maybe this is fine. This is probably fine. I don't want to graph out how I think this should work. So I'm just going to say it's good. I don't really care about the order. And it actually makes sense. So we start at 255 and we work our way down when we're recycling the entities because we've destroyed them in the opposite order. We destroyed them from 1 to 255. So when we recycle them, we pick 255 first. Oh, because when we destroyed 1, 255 took its place. And then when we destroyed 3, 253 took its place, and so on and so forth. So when we recycle them, we go back through that. Okay, that's fine. That's why you need multiple ways of identifying an entity, though, because the entities move around a lot. So its index is its index in no real sense of the word index. But people will just say entity ID index inversion. We maybe want a different word for that, but it's much the same there. Lots of late nights, but it's banking software, so it doesn't need support on weekends at least. Well, that's nice. You at least get weekends. Well, hell yeah. That's got to be cool. I hope you get the kind of, lift that, CTOs can get, because I've watched C-suite people move into role and they just bring on their own team. They're able to have a lot of control over who they're working with. And that's pretty nice to see. That's pretty cool. You don't know how much you missed, but this feels like it went from ERDs and laying foundations to running in debug overnight. Yeah, it's the basic tools here all seem to be working, which is, creating entities, adding components, removing components, destroying entities, recycling entities. The basic entity-based functions work, which is good. So that's basically all the tools that we're going to use for out-of-order entity-based actions. So if you have an entity ID and you're like, I need to do something on this entity out of order, like basically random access, because normally systems are going to be operating linearly in order. So a system will be like, give me all the entities that correspond to this archetype or that correspond to this query. Like all the entities that have positions and directions or whatever you have you. So the systems will normally be doing something else. They won't be using this process. They'll be operating directly on the spans, one after the other. So we get that. Hopefully we get some CPU caching there, somewhere like optimal caching. Not that we necessarily need it, but it's, one of the benefits of doing an ECS in theory. But this is like, these are the commands for like, I'm going through my list of entities linearly, and this entity references another entity that may or may not be in this list. Then we need commands like this to be able to do stuff individually. Sorry. What are we doing? All right, so this is, I'm just gonna increase the numbers involved here to be greater than what we can do with a single chunk, because we're probably gonna run into some errors. Once we start crossing chunk boundaries, and I'm kind of interested to see if the chunk boundary system works. If we can traverse chunk boundaries, because we can only fit a finite, we can only fit as many entities as will fit into like 16 kilobytes in each chunk. All right, we found an error. Oh. There's an error with the test system. 2048. We're gonna do 4096 actually. Because I actually don't know how many position, and I don't know. I really want to stress test this system. Which, you know, most entity component systems can handle like millions of entities. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. So I'm not super concerned about that. You got a dash for some work. We appreciate the hype for your new role. Best of luck with this. It's coming so far. Yeah, thank you, Freelansky. Congrats again. Good luck. You know, enjoy this last holiday season here before, you know. Well, I guess you're already doing the work, so I guess just good luck. Enjoy. We'll see you next time. All right, index was out of range. All right, where was the index out of range? Chunk. Okay, so we've got two chunks here. Oh no, that's not right. We've got, so interchunk equals 2. So we're in our third chunk. So we've already filled up 2 chunks, and we're on our third chunk. So this is entity ID 4094. It exists in the third chunk at chunk index 1364. 4094. So this is the second to last entity. And this is failing when we're adding the directions. So why are we failing precisely here? I didn't do anything stupid like not set a number correctly, did I? No. I should make this a constant for this testing purpose, but who cares? Oh, we've been live long enough that I think this radio has started looping. What do I want to listen to? Xdog60, thank you for the follow. How's it going? Let's play chill. Maybe we'll play Chiptune today. I never listened to Chiptune. Since we think we're moving away from playing music on stream, let's live it up right now while we got it. Okay, so we're adding component. So we're failing at the copy entity with component. So we're failing when we're trying to add the new component. So we copied over, oh no. We're failing here. Okay, so we're failing. So max items per chunk 365, entity count is 2047. So we didn't need to add a new. We didn't need to add a new one here. Okay, so we're failing while we're trying to copy a component over. Which component are we trying to copy over? Entity ID. Okay, so the first component. We're getting the component from the source. Does this chunk not exist anymore? Is that maybe the problem? Chunks. Yeah, so this... There's only 2 chunks here, but we're asking for the 3rd chunk. Why are we asking for a 3rd chunk? Chunks per list is 2. We're not passing through here. D and B is based. Oh, drum and bass. Is that what that means? I do like a little bit of like boom boom chop chop choom chop. Or are you talking about an artist maybe? No, this is mostly Popski, it looks like. We're still loading debugger information. All right, so let's find our thing. Interchunk 0. So the first 1,365 of these will have interchunk 0. Then it'll go to interchunk 1. It should go to interchunk 1 for the next 300. Oh. Oh, this is all of our... I see. So this is in a different archetype. I don't see anything here with an interchunk of 2, which is the issue we're running into here. Nobody here has an interchunk list of 2. Oh, okay, we're loading more. We're still loading more. Huh. I'm a little perplexed by this. This is entity 494. Okay, so we actually didn't finish checking this. Okay, so I can filter this where, can I say like where key? Oh, so I can say where entity ID. I see this where X is X. I don't know how to use this filter. Okay, where key. Okay, but where key equals. $40.94. Name key does not exist. So can we say entity ID dot index cannot access non-static property index in static context. Okay, so I seemingly can't do a filter here except for static stuff. Drum and bass, yeah. What's on now is pretty cool too. It's like chiptune right now. Oh, can I search here? Okay, here we go. Here's the search. 4094. Give me 4094. Not 1 through 75. I want all of them. I want to inspect this whole dictionary here. Okay, here we go. Here's 4094. Oh, look at this. It's an interchunk 2. An interchunk, or an intrachunk 1364. So it thinks it's at the end of this imaginary final chunk. This is fascinating. Oh, because we moved everyone else over, huh? We've successfully moved everyone else. So where are we? We're in this archetype. Let's look for this archetype's entity indices. This. So let's look at your entity indices. Let's look here. So you're an intrachunk 1. Okay, so you've moved everyone over fine. I want to look at this source archetype. All right, we're fine. We're figuring this out. Why the last couple entries are just so borked. So this doesn't make a lot of sense. Oh, this is a dictionary, so there's no real guarantee of where these things are in terms of the bucket, huh? So we can just have to like check some stuff. Let's at least see what this archetype's max items per chunk is. 2049. It's 1364. So did we have a third chunk at some point? So let's say 4096 divided by 1365. Okay, so at one point we did need 3 chunks. When did we need the third chunk? One. Oh. Okay, so we made a third chunk for one entity, and then we probably popped it off and put it somewhere else. So we needed exactly one. So this, but this entity isn't the one that should be there, and it shouldn't be so far away. Okay, we have a mystery here. Why is the last... Low-key reminds you of that XBLA game called All Zombies Must Die. I'm not familiar with that, but that would be old school. XBLA is old school now. Which hurts me, probably as much as it hurts you. Okay, so we're filling up these entities here. So I get why this is in the third chunk, but it shouldn't be at 1364. It should be in the third chunk in at the first array. So let's look at this Well, for one thing, this only has 2 chunks now, because we made it through half of them and we removed them. I think our entity was either not moved when it should have been moved, because it should have been used. An entity this far down should have been used to fill in a gap, and it wasn't. So that's the mystery. This actually is the correct 0, 1, 2. It's the wrong chunk. Okay, so this was its original address, and its address wasn't updated. I think it was moved, and its address wasn't updated. So we're not crossing the chunk boundaries correctly when we're doing this. When we're filling in the gap. Filling in the gap happens at a lower level here. It happens at copy component from. Right? No, it happens here. It happens at remove entity. So we got an issue in remove entity. Okay. All right, Trippy. All right, so how are we doing this when we cross chunk boundaries is my question. So we do the minus minus first. So this minus minus is wrong. So we're basically decrementing the entity count, and then we're using... No, we don't use entity count. We can actually do that, huh? The decrement is fine. Is it? Is it fine? Okay, no, so we're saying if we remove this entity... and we get its remainder from dividing it against max items per chunk. If it's 0, then the chunks per list goes down. For each component, we remove the chunk. Yeah. And then if sub ID is not equal to entity ID, so the sub ID is the item count minus 1. The answer can't be that this should work because it's obviously not working. So we need to find the problem here. So we get the last chunk. We get the last item in the chunk. Oh, we update the sub ID, but we're not updating the entity ID. Oh, we're removing it. So that's correct. We're just straight up removing it. Okay, so that part works. And then we need to update the substitute ID. So this is not happening all the time. So I think we're triggering this. If sub ID equals entity ID, I think we encountered this and we didn't update this, and it caused a problem. So we do this, Just because we're trying to avoid adding back in. We're trying to say if we remove the last entity in a chunk, don't try to substitute it with itself. Just be happy. Oh, we're just passing in entity indices here. No, that's correct, because that's where this entity was. I think we're hitting this somewhere where we're not supposed to. We're hitting this on 4094. Which 4095 should have been the last entity in the chunk. Okay, I think I'm narrowing down where the problem is. So this was the last, this was the highest entity in the chunk. This was like the final entity when it was in a full chunk. And so we've probably substituted this entity down no, why have we never done that for this? Why have we never done that with this? This should have been the second entity that was substituted. But if we look, that neither this entity... Oh. Are we only substituting within chunks? Are we not crossing the chunk boundaries when we do substitutions? That doesn't totally make sense. I don't think that's the problem, but let's see. Let's see if that's where the problem is. So remove component at is the way we do this. So we get the top chunk. We move the component from here to there. And then we update the chunk with the new item count. So we reduce the entity count immediately, and we say, with this reduced entity count, We get the remainder here of dividing it with max items per chunk. If that is 0, that means we have an empty chunk here. So we can delete the chunk, get that out of there. So we're... Okay, so we attempt to do the substitution no matter what. So we do a substitution no matter what. But we're only updating the entity indices if we don't delete the chunk. Okay, so this is wrong. So there's a reason I moved this. There's a reason we had this in the order that we had it, and it was causing an error. But now that we have it in this order, it is also causing an error. So something is wrong. So even if we've made the chunk empty now, we've done a substitution no matter what. Unless we've completely emptied an archetype out, which we've successfully done, so I feel like that's not the problem. I guess it's safe, because if we try to remove component at with a chunk that only has one item left in it, we just substitute it with itself, but then we decrement the item count, so the data is still there, and we just don't reference it anymore, so that's fine. So we're protected against that. We could try to defend against it another way, but I feel like it's not worth doing a check every single time if we can just safely ignore it. But the problem is, we're basically saying, if we're removing this chunk, we've still probably moved an entity, but we're not updating its indices. So we need to move this back up here, and then we need to deal with whatever error comes up there. I think this is correct. So we can do this thing again. We can invert the if. All right. Let's see what error we get from this, and then we'll address that. It should be a different error. Okay, so now the error... Oh, now we get the error immediately the very first time we try to add a component. That doesn't totally make sense. Get component, source index -1. Okay, that's obviously wrong. Chunk -1. Oh, because we're trying to remove... That doesn't make sense. We have a full archetype here. This archetype of position is full. So we've copied this entity over. Copied the very first entity over here. So this is the first entity in the first chunk. This has 4 chunks. That seems good. So we have an empty chunk here. So we have this empty chunk. Okay, so Okay, so the ordering here was correct. We just need to remove the return. I think I put a return in here erroneously. We need to do both. You fix this for me? Not exactly what I wanted, but it should be fine. It's like the most awkward thing with this IDE so far has been like going back and forth with like braces. These I could get rid of. All right. So maybe that was our mistake. Maybe our mistake was adding a return here at the end of this, because we do need to remove the chunk first. Okay, this should work. This should work. Famous last words. Okay, it didn't work, but did it not work in a different way? No, it didn't work in the same way. So this attempt to read this span with a -1 did not work. Oh, not equals. I'm an idiot. I inverted the if, but it didn't invert the conditional. Yeah, that obviously is broken. I'm surprised that wasn't more broken. Okay, now we have a different error. I love to see it. Now we have another error with some random... Where are we? So we're on the remove component. Okay, we made it to the next step. We got through the add components. And now we're in some random entity here in the remove step. 2732. What is significant about 2732? Why here? 2731. Or I think we're at another chunk boundary. Yeah, we are. So 2732 is the highest. 2732 would be the first. No, it's the highest entity in the second chunk. Hey, smooth in a second. Ship it. Thanks for the ship it. All right. So we're having an issue with the copy entity. Let's see. Let's look at the... Let's look here, because there's a problem here. So max times per turn 1365, entity count is 684. That feels wrong. Maybe that's right. So you're 2732. So you were at one point. at the top of a chunk. You probably moved. In fact, I know you moved. So you were moved around in the position archetype. Where are you now? So this has one chunk left. And it's full. Okay. Ooh, intra-chunk 1366. That is an invalid address. How did we get to that? How was that assigned to you? This address is wrong as well. So for one chunk that's completely full, we are at this very high number on a chunk that doesn't exist anymore. Okay, let's figure that out. So we added a bunch of components. So we made it through this step, which creates the entities and sets their initial position. We made it through this step, which adds a direction component to half of the entities. And then we were getting to this step, which removes a component from a quarter of the entities. This is where we failed. So we may have... a number of things could have happened here. We ended up getting a number here, an intra-chunk number that doesn't work for us. So you had a component added, so let's dig into this. So you had a component added, and that involves copy entity with component and remove entity with component. And then our issue is with our new archetype. Right? It's from copy entity. Oh, copy entity. Okay, because this is the removal phase. So we're having an issue with the removal phase. And this is being called from the destination archetype. Destination archetype here is looking back at the source archetype, which the source archetype only has one chunk left, but it's completely full. So there's one chunk left that's completely full. And so we go to copy our entity from that to here, but we're passing in an invalid entity index. This says that we are in the second chunk at an index that would actually indicate that we're in a third chunk. So that's wrong. So like this already exceeds the boundaries, but this also exceeds the boundaries. So both of these are exceeding the boundaries. It's frustrating. So we could be messing this up either during the addition phase or what's more likely during like a copying phase. Based on your index, which is 2732, it does make sense that you were the last entity in the second chunk initially. But then you had a component added to you. And at this point, you should be at the end of the first chunk. No? No, you should just be at a random point inside the first chunk. That might have been where it messed up. Yeah, so it was messed up during the addition phase. Unless you got moved down during the removal, then in earlier removal phases, that actually is probably what happened. A little hard to see how data moves around in this structure, which is why we're being very thorough about testing this phase, because we really need to be confident that the data is being moved between chunks correctly, or none of this will work. So this is a little painful, but it's worth it. I could add a bunch of debugging that's like, if we're operating on index 2732, like print stuff. So we could do a little bit of a data trace for how this piece has, you know, how this piece of data has transformed up until this point. I don't know if there's a way to do that, you know, directly in here, but I guess we could just do breakpoints. We'd need like conditional breakpoints. I don't know. I'm not the smoothest debugger, but I get there usually, eventually. I suspect that something got messed up during the remove entity phase. When this entity was pulled down. Because that's the only thing that would affect the source like this. So this entity was pulled down. I think what happened is we deleted a chunk. But we didn't recognize that when we plugged the entity indices back in. But we're just reusing this entity index, so that shouldn't have affected anything. We might be running into this sub ID issue, where sub ID occasionally equals entity ID. No, that wouldn't have made sense here. So we plug in here. You just hear Kirby music? Very possibly. This is like video game chiptune radio. I kind of like it. This is all by Popsky. Seems good. I'm not super familiar, but when it's come up, I've enjoyed it. There's a few other artists on here that I also do occasionally listen to. Big Giant Circles is good. Love you some Kirby music. Hell yeah. All right, so I have a suspicion that we're still dealing with fallout from this in certain circumstances. Trunk list remove component at. So remove component at always does an entity substitution. We've established that. no matter what, even when it probably isn't necessary, even when this is the last entity in the chunk and the chunk is about to get destroyed, we always do a little substitution and try to compress all of the entities down, even when it doesn't matter. So that we just know that happens, and that's okay. We've decided that's okay. So we can move past that. So we don't think it's this. We grab the entity index of the entity we're trying to replace, the entity we're substituting into. So we just grab where it currently is. Then we do this. We say if minus minus entity count, if the remainder of this, if once we've removed this entity, if we have an empty chunk, get rid of the chunk. That's fine. That means that we're removing the last entity of a chunk. Well, hold on a second. We get this entity. Oh, we're like deleting a chunk while we still need this entity here. This is perplexing. This is perplexing. Don't we still need this? Don't we need to... Because if we remove this chunk, all the references of it are gone. And we dispose of the memory. So that's bad. So we do need to defer this to some extent. But why do we keep needing to do this first? There's a reason we keep ordering this above this other thing, and it's because, so chunk lists, it's because we need to decrement chunks per list. What if we do it this way? If we do this. This is kind of stupid, but let's just see if this works. We can organize this better if this works. Same issue, so that wasn't the problem. We're still getting this chunk here. There's only one chunk. It is completely full. We're trying to get the next chunk. We're trying to get the top of the chunk above that. Huh. So it wasn't this. That had no effect. So let's think this through. What's happening here? Let's add some additional information here. Let's say if I is 2732. Let's say debug.writeLine Actually, I don't need to debug anything. Let's just put a breakpoint here. Oh, I need to have something here. Put a breakpoint here. Will that work? I just want to look at this exact state of the... Oh. I did this in the wrong order. I need to break this. Might be too early. I don't want to resume. I want to like step. Let's step into this. All right, so here we are. We're somewhere else here. We're adding. Let's step over this, step over that, step over that, step over that, step over that, step over. Step into this. Okay, so for 2732, this actually is going to be... So entity count is 1366. So is this true? Why is this saying this isn't true? So entity count's 1366, max item. Oh, okay, okay, because the remainder of that's going to be 1. So yeah, we don't have to worry about that. Chunks per list should already be 2. Okay. Very helpful to step through this stuff. Okay, here's a problem. Source. Something wrong here. So this becomes 0, 0. That's not right. Oh, if entity count... I'm not incrementing entity count. Oh, I'm incrementing it down. I'm incrementing it down here. Oh, shoot. How has that not shot me in the foot before? Okay, I think I found maybe the problem. No, that wasn't it, though. Okay, I was maybe wrong. Having some troubles with this. So, step into... this one. Step over, step over. So 1360 sticks should be the first index. Oh. So entity indices is... So when we're setting entity indices here, what are we setting? This. This is wrong. It's not entity count plus plus. That's a problem for sure. So we're in our second chunk. So chunks per list -1. Okay, so I found a problem. We can't just plug entity count in here. We need to... It's entity count... It's entity count accounting for the new chunk here. Looks pretty complex. Hey, Dan Brinkman. Yeah, we're making an entity component system, and we're moving stuff around archetypes. And within archetypes, they store all their data in chunks. So the chunks are like a finite size. So we're having a little bit of an issue when dealing with chunk boundaries, but I think we just found a core problem, which should be easy to fix. That explains why we're having some issues with chunk boundaries. I'm surprised this isn't coming up more often. So when we figure out the new entity index, so we don't actually change entity index here. We just copy it over. Okay, so we need to be sure we're setting the correct entity index here. So entity index here needs to be intra-chunk index here. This can be entity count. So it needs to be entity count. It needs to be the remainder of this. It needs to be, here we go. So we can say variable first available slot equals entity count plus plus the remainder of this. Max items per chunk. Just plug this in here. I have this deja vu, like we did something like this yesterday and it didn't work. But anyway, how's it going, Dan? All right, let's plug this in here. I don't understand why this failed for us here, but not here. See if we get a different error. Oh, we have a breakpoint we need to get rid of. Actually, I guess we could have used that as a good test. Step into this. Step over all of this. Step into here. Oh, I modified the wrong function. We have to do the same thing here anyway. This soundtrack is dope. It reminds me of Risk of Rain a little bit. Not exactly, but a little bit. Do we use entity count anywhere else in this function? No. Okay, this might be right. This might be right. I don't think we were accounting for... We needed the remainder from entity count divided by max items per chunk. We need to use this as the slot. We can't just use the straight entity count as the intra-chunk index. That doesn't make any sense. Weird that we got this far without that becoming a problem. All right. Oh. Get rid of this breakpoint. It's actually very weird that we got through this. We got this far without that becoming a problem. We're still having an error at exactly the same entity. so in remove component, okay, so go in here. Its chunk indices is 0, 0, which feels wrong. I'm going to look at our entity indices and see what's going on here. Are these all 0? Okay, so chunk 0 and da-da-da. Okay, so how many can we fit? We said it was like 1365. 600 things in here. So we've started removing every 7th thing. Oh no, this is what we're adding to. So we're adding to it, okay. I need to look at the source archetype. Man, the debugging tools here are so good. Look at this. Look somewhere in here. 13. So let's see what happens after we get to 1365. Ah, look, we're 1330. Oh wait, 1365. 1363, 1364. 1360. Chunk 1, 0, 2730. Why is 2730 the one? 2733 is 0, 1360. I guess that's just the movement that's happening. There's like a leapfrog happening. Okay, it seems like we're assigning intra-chunk indexes correctly now, at least. We're still having a problem at a very specific moment. Should this be plus plus entity count? Because we're copying in. No, this is correct, because we want to start with 0 because we're doing a bunch of initialization. So when this is empty, the first available slot will be 0. And then once we've filled up... Oh. I see a problem. Those are some pretty sweet debugging tools. They really are. It's JetBrains Writer. It's pretty sweet. As someone who's been working in Godot, just with like the built-in Godot debugger, which is good. Built-in Godot debugger is good. I don't mind it. But this is like... This works pretty well too. How's it going? What kind of stuff are you working on? Love hearing what everyone's working on. All right, I might be about chip tuned out here. Especially because it's like holiday chip tune stuff is happening. Peer-to-peer card game right now. Oh. Most of your problems are network related. Yes. That's why I don't do multiplayer games. I'm not a network programmer. So as far as I'm concerned, that is all dark magics. Peer-to-peer card game sounds pretty cool, though. I was talking to someone who was thinking about making like a peer-to-peer roguelike, multiplayer roguelike game, and I'm like, that's wild. That sounds insane. But a card game does not sound... I mean, it sounds easier to the extent that it's not a roguelike, but yeah, that's tough. What are you building it in? At least it's turn-based, makes it a lot easier. That is true, that is true. A lot of roguelikes are turn-based as well, but they could very well not be. But yeah, a turn-based multiplayer game does feel like a different beast from a real-time one. So are we having like an off by one error here? That was my first thought. Because 0 divided by 1365 is going to be 0. But once it's 1, once it's 1365 divided by 1365, now that's 0 again. Oh, but we're not incrementing until after. Shoot. Maybe it's this? Is it this? Is this our problem? Because we're dealing with indexes instead of counts? This may very well just move the problem one space, but I don't care. Anything at this point would be an improvement. Godot Steam library is pretty nice. That's what I've heard. That's cool. Okay, that didn't make any difference. Why did I decide to build an ECS? I'm doing kind of like a more simulation heavy game. Like a lot of stuff kind of happening off screen. So I wanted a way to calculate and simulate. I wanted a way to simulate entities where not everything needed to be like backed by a node. I wanted to be able to have like a data world, a simulation world, and then have that simulation world just send the stuff over to the rendering, like to the scene tree, which is like our rendering world. Only send over the stuff that's needed, but basically have everything be determined in the simulation world first. And, you know, I needed a way to represent things in simulation land, and an entity component system seemed like a good choice. Now, why I'm making my own entity component system, there is no good answer to that, except that I wanted to kind of understand the technology. This is a game that's going to be in development for a long time, and I wanted to, you know, understand what I'm using. The given key entity ID was not present in the dictionary. Oh, this is actually, in fact, a different error. It's actually not here. Oh, okay. Now we got something different going on. It looked like the same error because it was at the same spot involving the same index, but now this isn't available here. taking too long to load this. There we go. Why are we adding all of these back? Is my question, maybe. Here's our world here. Here's where... So 2732 doesn't exist. We go up... We go up here and we just... Okay, there's something weird happening here at this chunk boundary when we get to the third chunk. Okay. Let's get rid of this. See what happens. Makes sense. So are the chunks just memory blocks you allocate ahead of time as needed? Yeah. They're big 16 kilobyte blocks of just raw byte memory that we then fill as we needed per the types that we needed. But it's like a super generic memory storage. And I'm just having some issues. We've got to, like, you know, we're moving them between archetypes because we're using an archetype-based system. And I'm having, it seems like I'm having some issues with, especially keeping, because we got to keep the chunks tightly packed, right? So we're doing a lot of moving stuff around when we remove entities and stuff. And I'm running into an issue with that now. Okay, so this entity is being deleted from the entity indices. It's just being straight up deleted. Oh, it's probably because I'm calling this twice. I'm such an idiot. I made an error for myself there. All right, now we're back to the previous error. Right, now we're back to the index error. Okay. Okay. Interchunk 1, intrachunk 1. That seems wrong. I feel like we should be interchunk 1, intrachunk 0. Can we search for... I want to search for this one. I want to search for 2732. All right, let's let that load for a minute. Oh, god dang it. I missed my second ad break. I've missed 2 ad breaks so far. Peer-to-peer card game. That sounds really cool, Dan. Is that just 1v1? Because that's like, I feel like most card games are 1v1. But you're saying peer-to-peer, so I feel like it could be anything. All right, so we found it. We found it in here. We're 1-1. Okay, well, let's look at 2731. We're 0-1364. So that's wrong, for sure. Because we should be 1-0. 2730. Oh, no, 2730 is 1-0. Okay. Okay. 2734. 1-2. 36. 1-3. 38. 1-4. 40. 1-5. Okay, so this part's working. So why are we having problem? Where is problem? I mean, I know where is problem, but like... Co-op versus a big bad. Oh, let's go. That sounds wild. It's like 4 players versus the computer. That sounds... I have never heard of anything like that. So we're 1-1. Our chunk indices are 1-1. We're out of an index. We're out of range because our source archetype is dropped down to 1. We only have 1 chunk left is our problem. It's full, but we only have 1 chunk left. That doesn't seem right. Makes sense that this is like half full. This has references to a ton of entities in chunk 1, but it's saying that it's empty. I mean, it's saying that it's only got 1365 entities, but it's got over 2,000 entity indices. So, I mean, that's a problem. Wait, 1,300? Oh, 1,000. 1,364? And then we got stuck here. So we're still moving stuff over. So we got up to, or we got down, we got up to 27, 26. We skipped 2730 because we're going every 4. So we've gotten here, 2730. But for some reason, the chunk corresponding to all of this information is gone. It's been destroyed. Even though there's only 680 whatever. This is the source one, right? Yeah. This is not the destination. This is what we're pulling from. And yet, our chunks per list is 1. Okay, I think we're narrowing it down. We're erroneously disposing of a chunk that still is like full. How are we doing that? When are we doing that? Why are we doing that? I mean, we only ever dispose of a chunk in remove entity. So we're doing something here. It's obviously something right here. So let's just see every time that happens. Let's just breakpoint this. See when we're doing that. Okay, we're doing it now. We're doing it now with the initial index 00 when we're removing an entity. Where are we doing this? Okay, so we're doing it when we add a component. And that makes sense. That makes sense that we're doing this initially because I think we just have one. Like if we look, can we get it from here? If we look, like if we look at our entity indices, we look at this. We look at our source archetype and we look at what they got. They have an empty count of 4095. They have chunks per list of 4. Let's look at the chunk list. I mean, let's look at this chunk list. Oh. 1365, 1365, 1365. 1365 times 3. 4, okay, so we've already decremented the item count here because we've copied this over. We've copied this entity over to its new archetype already. But now we're looking at the old archetype and we're doing some cleanup. And in the old archetype, so here's a correct time to be doing this. Get this. So this is a correct time to be doing this because max items count per count is 1365. Entity count minus minus is 4095. So we're removing an entity that results in an empty chunk. So we subtract this, so this becomes 3. Well, we'll remove the chunk, so we'll step over this. Step over this. So we remove those components. We get here, chunks per list minus 3, so that's chunks 2. So we get so we have 3 chunks, so we get the chunk indexed to 2. And then we get this component. What entity do we get back here? Sub ID is this entity ID. We get back 0, 0. Or we should step over this and then see what we get. So this, we got 4094. Why not 4095? I would have thought we would have gotten 4095. Ah, this is the thing we identified earlier that was a problem. Because we're removing this chunk, and then we're trying to get the entity that was there. We're getting the wrong entity. We're getting 4094 when we should be filling in with 4095. Okay, okay. It's all coming together. The little gray cells are working. Not efficiently, but they're working. So 4094 is being told that it's a 0, 0, but it's not, is it? This function can we go back? Is there a way to go back? I guess we have to rerun it. Okay, I want to dig in somewhere else and verify this. I think I figured this out. Over. Oh. Oh wait, can I scrutinize this, or do I have to put? I don't know if I can scrutinize this. We can think about it though. So here, down here at remove component at, we will get the last chunk. And the last chunk is the next chunk. And so we are actually getting 4095, and we're substituting in 4595, but we're recording that 4094 is there. So we're recording that we're mixing these things up. Because this substitution is happening before the chunk is removed. Aha, okay. Well, that's great. We've identified an error really early that I think was propagating down and biting us in the ass. And so I think that 2732 entity that was running into issues, it was just running into the compound issues to the point that it caused a compiler error. Whereas this error is actually happening much earlier. It's happening as soon as entity 0. I guess it was just becoming a critical error by the time we got to 2732. That kind of explains some of the weird stuff I was seeing. All right, so before we decrement the chunks per list, we need to do some stuff. But there's a reason we do this first. And it's because we can't actually get this component here. Unless maybe we just say item count, because item count has already been deprecated. Oh, I'm pulling from where the data was. I should be pulling from where the data is. That makes more sense. That's a less insane thing to do. I'm copying the data over. It's fine to get rid of the chunk, but then I can't like read into the chunk that I just got rid of. I need to read where the information was going. So I need to pull Got it. Got it. Pheasant SC2. Thanks for the sideways Pikachu pyramid. How's it going? We've been bashing our head against the wall on this debugging issue, but I think we finally got through the wall. Like, I think all that stands left is me. And my bloodied skull here. And no wall. Let's see. Let's make this change and see if that's right. So we can get rid of this. So in this case, we're actually just gonna plug in this. Because the data is here now. I don't know why I was doing this another way. That was kind of insane. Entity indices dot intra chunk. Why is this not working? Oh, I see. Let's be using static component type. Sounds like a normal day. You know, in many ways, you're not wrong. All right, this should be it. Let's try that again. $13.65. Feeling fine. So let's go back down here. Let's step over. Step over that. Step over that. Step over that. Step in here. What do we got? Oh, we got to step over that. 4095, not 4094. Okay. I think we fixed our off by one error. All right. Okay, I think we're correctly now substituting in the right entity. Whether this solves the problem by itself, who knows? So we're just going to resume. Resume. We hit this again because now we're dropping the chunk. So we're basically draining the chunk list, or the chunks, as we're copying them over to this new archetype. And let's just step over that. Step over all this. Check this out. Oh, we got an argument exception. The hell is this? All right, well, we ran into an error. Why? Sub ID is 0. Get chunks, interchunk 2, 0. Interchunk 2, 0. Chunks list is 2 now. Name flags does not exist in the current context. Are you for real? My static using cause a problem? Oh, I should have probably gotten rid of the breakpoint. Let's do that for a second and see if this works. This keyword "this" is not valid in a static property. Like, what? What does that even mean? Why does this fail on the second try? Whatever. I was trying to save some space, not having to type this whole thing out. Let's just type the whole thing out. I don't think that matters. Wait, where are we failing? At add component 2730. Okay, so one entity earlier than we were failing before. So I solved an off by one error, but it seems like I didn't solve the core problem. Add component. So we got through the copy entity with component part. We're just having issues with the remove. When we do the remove, 2-0. So we're having to clean up another. So it is coincidental that this does happen the next time we need to clean up a chunk. So when we went from 3 to 2, everything was fine. But now we're going from 2 to 1, and we're running into an issue. This is 2732. So we did remove a chunk. We went from 3 to 2. Or we're going from 2 to 1, maybe? Or were we going from 4 to 3 and that worked, but now we're going from 3 to 2. Yeah, I think that's what happened. And now we're running into an issue where we didn't get anything back from this. Component type, entity ID as a type, which is not valid in the given context. That's kind of confusing. Well, we are trying to index chunk 2 in a chunk list that only has 2 chunks. So that's perplexing. Oh, they're both full. So we have 2 and they're both full. So we just removed a chunk, but now we're trying to reference it. Why are we trying to reference a chunk that we just removed? 2-0. It makes sense that 2730 is here. We just copied your stuff over. Where did you copy you to, though? Sorry, we've kind of devolved into just bug hunting. Not exciting, but, you know, we gotta do it. And once it's done, once we do it, it's done. I have some people reaching out to me, being like, there was a tsunami and an earthquake, are you good? And I'm like, yeah, live on a hill. I guess I'll respond. It's probably the one time it's good to respond immediately. That's nice. All right. So this is interesting. Why is this entity... So this entity was put here. We just got rid of this entity and we substituted it with something else. Oh, I guess if we're the last entity in an archetype, this doesn't work. It's not enough to just say, don't do this part. We actually have to figure out another check. Because if we are the very last entity and we're the first entity in a chunk. If we're the last entity in the archetype and the first entity in a chunk, which is like the same thing. Then when we try to do this, we tried to fill in with ourselves, which worked, but then we deleted the chunk that we filled into. So we need a way of checking to make sure that that's valid. What's the easiest way to do that? I mean, here I just got I tried to get the ID first and then tried to compare it. So I guess here we'll just say, well, if we're removing a chunk, if we are the last thing of a chunk. Oh, it's because I'm doing a pre-increment. Or a pre-decrement. That's correct, right, though? That's like the correct way to do it? Because when I'm adding, I do a post-increment. But that's because I'm using this as like an index. And when I'm removing, I'm using a pre-decrement. And that's fine, right? Because we're saying, you know... Symbol! How's it going? Red alert. Batten down the hatches. Secure, I don't know, the brig probably. It's probably what we're gonna need. Pew pew pew! Pew 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 pew! How are things going? Hey everyone, welcome in. We're working on an FTL-like kind of game. We're deep in the guts of this entity component system that we're making. There's like one last little bug that's been bothering us all day, and we're getting through it. But how's it going? Welcome in. How was the stream? Good. Back to game deving after 5 days off. Nice. I took all of last week off, so I get it. I came back and I started looking at my code, and I was like, what is this? What was I even working on? What is any of this, and why did I do it this way? Making some UI? That's cool. I don't like making UI. Realized you need to do some chores. Yeah, same. We'll probably wrap up in like 30 minutes so I can go do laundry. But I want to get through this bug, so we're going to do it first. So yeah, feel free to raid and run, obviously, if you got those chores you need to go do. Appreciate you bringing the raiders here. Tricky Lady says, hello, Digital. Who are you? What are you? What are you making? What do you eat tomorrow? I'm Dave. I'm a meat popsicle, also known as a human being. What am I making? I'm making a isometric 3D version of FTL Faster Than Light. It's kind of like a Starship Simulator. And what do you eat tomorrow? Tomorrow is Friday, so I'd say something heavy. Something that you eat this and it just knocks you out. Like you were just done. Like... say something like something really significant. Like we had someone in earlier who was eating a burrito, and I was like, I can't eat a burrito. If I eat a burrito, I'm taking a nap. So I'd say something like that. Something rich. Pizza? I don't know. Indian food. If you got good Indian food, I don't think you could get... I think that's probably my favorite rich type of food. Would be Indian food. Fine is fine. Thank you for the follow. You're having chili for dinner, Symbol? That's nice. That's nice. Gotta go for reals, leaving the lurk. Thank you. Oh, hey, teammate. Oh, hey, Fine is fine. I haven't seen you before. Let me hit you with the follow if we're teammates. I give you the shout out, but I need a shout out Symbol. I always forget to do this. Usually because whoever raids me brings in literally all the viewers. So there's no reason to shout them out. But Symbol's great. Symbol does a lot of jams. Kind of a jam extraordinaire. It's gotten some really great ratings and honorable mentions and position placements in different jams. You made chili a few days ago, had pizza some days ago, and a burrito on Monday. I'm telling you then, get a nice curry. Get like Indian food or something. You love Symbol streams, you lurk a fill bit. Since Symbol's not here anymore, what do you work on, Fine is Fine? I don't think I've caught one of your streams. I'm following you though. You made palak paneer on Sunday. Tricky lady, you are eating all the best food. I don't feel like I'm in a position to like guide you in any way. Have you had a burger recently? It's like maybe some lasagna. You're making a horror game in Unreal. You're a tech artist. Oh, so you're part of like a bigger team. Yeah? That's nice. I'm a solo dev. Kind of because I have to. It's like how I'm made. I'm very possessive of my work. But you didn't have a burger nor lasagna. Okay, I say burger because lasagna is a Monday food. Garfield would want you to eat lasagna on Monday. There's two of you. Tech artist was your former career. Okay, okay, so deep in the indie dream. Being a tech artist is like being the best kind of game artist because you actually know how to implement everything. That's a great thing to be. I think more concept artist folks, I think they're struggling nowadays in the games industry. Thanks, AI. That's cool, and you're doing it in Unreal. Two-person dev team in Unreal. That sounds a little intimidating, but I imagine your programmer is, like, solid. Or they're using blueprints for everything. Well, that's cool. We're firmly in Godot land after a very long time as a Unity developer, where we embraced Godot over a year ago, and I never looked back. It's so good, especially for what I'm doing, which is kind of like 2D pixel art stuff. I don't know if you can beat Godot. I know Game Maker's great. I know people love Game Maker, but I don't know if you could beat Godot for, 2D pixel art stuff. So, as I've said before, we're trying to make an FTL-like in Godot. We're still early days. We're working on our entity component system for handling all of our dissimulation stuff. Yeah, that's you, the blueprinter. It's really nice. One of your friends is making a 2D pixel art Metroidvania in Unreal, which is brave. That is horribly misguided, but also brave. What I'm doing is horribly misguided too, so I shouldn't talk. But yeah, I actually have never done pixel art before. This is my first time doing a significant amount of art, and I'm enjoying it. I've done a game jam here or there, but This is my first like big project for where I'm doing the art, you know. And I like it a lot better than I thought I would, is what I would say about that. Wouldn't say I'm good. Like, I pick my battles, obviously. Like, you'll see that these characters are like 14 pixels tall and 7 pixels wide. And they have no distinguishing features of any kind, because that's all I can draw and like all I can animate. So I'm going for that. I've gone for such a low resolution that like the choices are all really obvious. I don't need to know anything about like anatomy or anything like that. Don't forget this masterpiece. That's true. I did a game jam earlier this year where I did the pixel art for it, and all I got was this emote. The nostalgia vibes. Yeah, I agree that it has nostalgia vibes. I just don't understand how. Because I don't think games really ever quite looked like that. But I'm excited. I love pixel art. Also a teammate. Oh, the Whitechapel. Okay, yeah, I'm aware of the Whitechapel. I don't get to see them much. So you're the tech artist. What does your partner do? And it sounds like you're doing some programming, like with blueprints. All right, so we have a bug right now. When we're emptying one chunk and moving things into another chunk, we're having a bit of a bug. And it happens at a very precise point where the entity we're trying to move is, the entity we're trying to replace is itself the last entity in the chunk and also the archetype by necessity. And so we need a catch for that. And I think the easiest way to do that is to just say like, because it's fine. This is whatever. This just says by removing and replacing this entity, are we emptying the chunk, and therefore we should get rid of a chunk. That's fine because the substitute might be the last entity in the archetype, but we're trying to replace like the first entity in the archetype. That's what happens the first time we drop a chunk. That's fine. So this we need down here like a check of like if, I don't know, entity indices dot intra chunk is the same as, I guess we should say is entity count 0. No, because it's not if entity count 0. It's if, yeah, it's something to do with entity indices intra chunk, because the intra chunk index is this. So maybe it's if intra chunk is 0. Oh, this is just weird. No, we need like a really weird test. We need something like, because this is really tricky. This happens when the entity we're trying to replace is the entity we're replacing it with. So that means that this is the entity at the very back. It's at the very back of the chunk. Okay, but it's back of the last chunk. Okay, no, this is easy. She's a lawyer in the day, but she's doing environment and level design at night. Okay, okay. Okay, so they're more of the designer, and you're doing more of the technical stuff. That's cool, because that's not like totally the way I'd normally see that split. Because you're a technical artist, but you're also doing the programming, like blueprinting. That's cool. Unreal's probably a good choice for what you're doing then, because like, I know Godot technically has like block coding options, where like you can code without writing code, but like, I don't know. Blueprints seem better if that's the route you're going. So let's say, so we're gonna say entity indices dot intra chunk Okay, so we need to say is entity indices dot inter chunk greater than chunks per list, or is equal to. So if this is the same, meaning that we're replacing a chunk in an entity, maybe this is the only check I need to do, because this means we're this chunk is going to be empty. We're going to delete it, so we're reducing chunks per list. But if your interchunk index is the same as the chunks per list count, that means that we're trying to replace an entity in a chunk that has been deleted. So if this is true, then we just return. Otherwise, we do this stuff. I'm really hoping that's the safety catch that we need. You had to write all the CPP for the gameplay. We're using gameplay ability system, but it's all implemented in blueprints. You wrote the gameplay last year, so you shouldn't need to touch much native code from this point on. Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm hoping once this entity component system is mature, it will be similar where I can just forget about it. Oh, so we ran. We ran with no errors. I think we quashed the last bug. Squashed? Oh. I just closed something. I just closed my debug log, my debugger. How do I get it back? There we go. Okay. So look, so we're making it through the entire test suite. So we've created a bunch of entities, set their components. We've added a bunch of components to half of them, moving them to a new archetype. We've then remove a component from half of those that we added to, so a quarter of the overall number. Then we delete a bunch of the original entities that haven't been messed with, to the point at which we empty the archetype, and then we repopulate that entire archetype with a bunch of recycled entities. And we're doing it to 4,000 of them, meaning we're crossing chunk boundaries. All right. I think we did it. Let's just review. Let's review the tape real quickly here. Let's just do a quick check here. So this is all what I would expect. So like index 0 has only a direction component. So that's in an archetype. Index 4095 is version 1 because we deleted it and then recycled its entity. That has just a position. Entity index 2, version 0, has a position and a direction. And then we just go through this whole thing. Hell yeah. All right, all basic entity component system functions work. We got the entity part and we got the component part. The next thing we need to do is the system. And the system needs a thing called a query to be working. I'm going to get to the end of this scroll here. Yeah, index 1. It's crazy how they bounce around and they go back and forth, but that's because there's like a LIFO thing going on. There's like a last in, first out kind of thing that we're doing to keep all the chunks as condensed as possible. That's awesome. Let's just look at a couple other things. Let's look at our chunks maybe, or our chunk lists. Oh, I need to stop at a breakpoint to do that. Forget it. We did it. It's working. So the next thing we're going to need to do is a query system that basically lets us say, so like that's a good example where we had like 3 archetypes. We had a position archetype, so that's an entity that only has a position. We had a position direction archetype, so that's an entity that has both a position and a direction. And we had a direction archetype, so this was an entity that only had a direction and no position. So we had 3 different archetypes. So a system might be like, give me every entity that has a position. And that would need to give you both entities that have a position by itself and also entities that have a position and a direction. So we need a query system that can assemble all of that and present it to the system so that the system can operate over all of those entities in a linear manner very efficiently. And that's what we need to do. And once we have a query system, that's it for the minimum viable product of this ECS. There's a ton of stuff you could do with an ECS besides that. You could do a buffer. You could do a command buffer where like you don't make structural changes to the system while it's running, which is good. We might actually end up needing to do that, depending on how the query system can handle it. Because query systems are going to need to be cached to an extent, but they're only going to need to be cached in the sense of they need to be aware of which archetypes match their query, so they don't have to look every time. And so we just have to be conscious of that when we're creating archetypes. When we create an archetype or destroy an archetype, well, we don't destroy archetypes, but we do mark them empty. So yeah, we'll need a couple little tricks here and there to make that work. And honestly, we'll probably spend the next couple weeks on queries, getting them working correctly. But I'm hoping that by the end of the year, we're done with this. We're done with the entity component system. We've got a way to get entities back into the scene tree. So we've got a way of syncing the game board, the like scene tree board, with the entities in the data layer. Cool. I'm going to show you guys while I've got you here, since I've got more people here than normal, and we've got a few minutes left. Here's kind of the Godot side of things that we've got already. Which we've got... Oh, this isn't the right scene. Apologies. This scene. So, you know, I said we're making an FTL-like that's kind of isometric. We need like a tool set up to like create ships that are 3D. We have a super basic system for this now. We can basically, it's an auto tile system, because for the isometric stuff, you really need an auto tile system. So it's handling the selection of the sprites. So we get that nice outline, but we only get it at the edges. So we've got an auto tiler, so we can build out these structures. We also have a compartmentalization system. So this system can tell whether a room is exposed to outer space or if it's fully sealed on all sides by like walls and ceilings and floors. So if I close this in here, you'll see it turns a light color. And that's because our flood fill system can tell that this is pressurized. We need that because, you know, this is an FTL-like, so you need to be able to... So we got a roof on it. So you need to be able to, you know, depressurize a room. Like you put a door here. Let's make it a bigger door. So we've actually got auto tiling on the doors too, so we can swap what door we're drawing. So I'm really pleased with this auto tiler. We can also rotate everything. So we have the game data separate from the rendering data, which is cool. That's kind of why we're doing this whole thing. Snooze the ads. And we can keep going. So the goal is going to be like... Oh, I think I left the... Oh yeah, I lost focus on the screen. I was like, why can't I do anything? So we could keep going and make additional floors. It's really ugly so far. Like, this isn't the way you'd want a ship to look like at all. It's like a flying housing project. But we'll work on that. I've got some new art assets that will let us so you can kind of see the flood fill systems continuing to work there. So yeah, we're gonna very soon be creating ships and having people running around them, and you know, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good stuff. We have this visibility cutaway system. But yeah, some of this needs to be refactored into our entity component system. But a lot of this is just the way it is, because the rendering stuff is going to continue to be on the GDScript side in Godot. That's just a quick demo of what's going on there. I haven't been able to show that for a few days because our other code hasn't been running. But it's running now. The entity component system runs. So we can actually disable this test system. So let's... So where's the main system? Here's the main system. So main system, we're not going to start running the test system. We're not going to run the test system anymore. Yeah, very pleased with that. That all of that works. We've been working on this system for a few weeks here. All right, I gotta go do laundry. Let's find someone to raid. Figure out who we're raiding. Oh, the Infinity Shot. Otter is streaming. We love Otter Makes Games. I think they're a teammate. Let's look at the team. Irish John obviously is streaming. Hypnotic streaming. What's Hypnotic working on? We raid Otter all the time. I love the art that Otter is working on. Let's go hang out. Not sure what Hypnotic's doing today. All right. I really appreciate everyone hanging out today. Thank you, Symbol, for the raid. Shout out to Fine is Fine, who's another teammate doing some great stuff that I'm hoping I will get to see next time. See if I can catch one of your streams. But yeah, thanks everyone so much for watching. You all have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you next time. Bye.